Tina Svaren has spent most of her life living in the Missoula and Bitterroot Valleys. She is an active participant in community theater in her home of Stevensville. Together with her husband, son, and dog, she spends as much time as possible hiking, rafting, camping, and taking in all of Montana's breathtaking landscapes. She is honored to be part of this event. Please welcome Tina Svaren.
We're good. Okay. We're good. Hello. So it was the day before Father's Day in 2008. It was a Saturday. And my husband, myself, and our friends Steve and Teresa, along with their son Caleb, who was 6 years old at the time, were going to take our raft out on the Blackfoot. And we floated the Blackfoot many, many, many times. And so because it was in early June, the water was running really fast, very high, we decided that we should probably put in at Johns Rood and float down to the old Bonner Way station off of Highway 200. That way, that stretch of the river, we were least likely to run into obstacles that could really pose a dangerous situation to us. We had a kid with us after all, and we want to be safe. So it was a beautiful day. I mean, the sky was blue, the sun was warm, the water was crisp. It was quite refreshing, actually. And you could kind of see little white caps, on the water the whole way down. It was moving really quickly. So we pulled over after we'd been on the river for a little while. We pulled over at Rainbow Bend to get out, let Caleb stretch his legs, just kind of enjoy ourselves and kind of try to extend the length of this journey because it was going really quickly. And we decided after we'd stopped there, the water's going to pick up here in a little bit. Maybe we should find one more spot to stop, just so the journey isn't over so quickly. It could have been over in an hour. And after you put all that work into getting your gear together and getting on the water and shuttling vehicles, we wanted to make it last a little bit longer. So right before the river really, really started to pick up, we found a nice little shady bank full of nice wet sand. And we stopped there for a while. We played with Caleb, built sand castles. I remember covering his little feet with sand and, running in the river and washing them off, not too far in the river, because it was moving fast and it was very deep. And after a while, I look up and we start to notice there's several other parties of rafters going by. One person, two people. In the midst of all of this are these two ladies, and they're paddling just furiously in this little tiny two-man raft. And it was like one of those rafts that you used to see outside of Sportsman's Surplus all the time, little like $100, they were called I think the Fish Hunter. And to put things into perspective, we're in a heavy-duty 14-foot raft with 4 able-bodied adults paddling it. And they're in this little tiny two-man raft. And I looked at my husband and I said, what are they doing? They're gonna flip that boat. That boat they shouldn't be on the water in a boat like that right now. And then there wasn't anything we could do about it, So after some more time passed, we saw several other groups of people go by, one after another. And we decided, okay, well, it's time. We should probably pack up and get back on the water ourselves. We came around this corner, and we were going through a little set of rapids that was kind of turned into a big set of rapids because of how high the water was and how fast it was moving. And I look up, and clinging to the riprap is a woman in a life jacket. And I looked at her and I said, do you need help? And all she could do was scream, help, help, help me, help me. And so Eric and Steve are in the back of the raft. Teresa and I are up front with Caleb. And they turned that boat and cut across those rapids with so much strength that Steve's wooden oar snapped in half. And he looks and he yells at me, oar down, so I toss him mine and I grab the extra one that we had up front, the little shorty one, and we're doing the best that we can to get across the water. Well, there's no bank to pull off on. It's all boulders stacked up against the road cut. There's no bank. There's no trees to tie your boat to. So I get out of the front of the raft, and there I am, kind of precariously balancing 1 foot on these rocks, 1 foot on the raft while I'm trying to grab for the lead, while Eric and Steve scramble out of the back of the raft in chest-deep water to go help this woman. And they got up to her and literally had to pry her fingers off the riprap and physically carry her down to our raft. And when she got there was no way she was going to get in. I'm not getting in another boat. And we said, listen, the only way to get out of this situation is you're either gonna come in our boat or you're gonna swim. Because there's nowhere to walk, there's no path. You can't climb up there. The highway was, it had to be 20, 30 feet above us. And we finally convinced her to get in the raft, and she sat down next to me and she grabbed my hand, and she looks at me and she goes, "Can I throw up now?" I said, "You can do whatever you need to do, but please do it over the side." And after we got her calmed down, she was able to collect herself a little bit and tell us what happened. And she and her sister had gone through just above us, that same area, and their boat flipped. And while she was a very, very strong and able-bodied swimmer, she didn't remember swimming. She didn't remember swimming across the water. She didn't remember getting to where she was. But more importantly and more pressing was the fact that she didn't know where her sister was. Nobody did. And I looked at her and I said, "We're going to find your sister." The next stop down the river is Marco Flats. It's a nice little river access there. I said, "We'll flag down a car, we'll find someone with a phone, we'll do something, we will get help, we will find your sister." And I don't really know how much time went by at that point. It could have been 5 minutes, it could have been 20 minutes. Time didn't really exist at that point. But I looked at her and I said, "Was your sister wearing a red life jacket?" And she said, "Yes," and she started searching the water, and I said, "No, look." And up on the grassy knob, right before the highway goes down to Marco Flats, is a woman in a red life jacket, holding a kayaking paddle, jumping up and down. And I said, "We have your sister, we have your sister." So we pulled over, and she came running down, and they cried, we all cried. And her sister said, "I called your husband, I called my husband, I called 911. And the lady that was with us grabbed Eric by one arm, and she grabbed Steve by the other, and she said, these guys right here are my 911. And so after a little while, we decided, okay, we'll let you guys get on, and we helped her sister dump the water out of that little 2-man raft. And how she was able to navigate that boat, it was completely filled, like an overflowing bathtub full of water. How she was able to get it there, I will never know. And the rest of the float, getting down to the way station, none of us really talked much. It was a lot of energy. We were processing a lot of what had happened. And ordinarily, on a day like that, when we all go floating together, we would be saying, whose house are we going to grill at tonight? Where are we going to barbecue? What are we going to do? But by the time we got our vehicles shuttled around, got our raft loaded up, everything, nobody mentioned anything. We went our separate ways that day. And we went home, and I remember Eric and I being totally wiped out and exhausted and still shocked at what had happened. And so now it is 9 years later, and as I'm telling you guys this story, I can't remember their names. I don't really remember what their faces look like. I remember their hair. They both had the same shade of brown hair. One wore it long, one wore it short. But that's all I really remember about them physically. But every single time I drive up Highway 200 and I come around that bend in the road, I look down at the river, and it's brings me right back. And I'm so incredibly grateful that we chose that stretch of the river that day at that time on that Saturday before Father's Day in 2008. Thank you.